almost an year ago, I made a video about this Canon 50mm lens that I had been wasting for an year until realizing its full potential. But in that video, I did not talk about this lens's ability. So this video is a review of Canon 50mm lens, aka the Nifty 50. First, you might notice that this lens is pretty small. It's almost half the size of the basic 18 to 55mm lens actually. It's also very light compared to other lenses. Another reason I like this lens is because of its low f-stop. F-stop is almost like a unit that refers to how open the aperture of a lens can be. The lower the f-stop, the more open the aperture is, which allows for shallower depth of field and lets more light into the camera. The basic 18 to 55mm lens has f-stop of 4. This lens has lowest f-stop of 1.8, which is significantly lower. This gives this lens two strengths. First of all, it lets shoot shallow depth of field, and let's admit it, which looks more prettier than other photos most of the time, not always. And the lens is also great for low light settings. For one of my film projects named Vox, my crew and I were shooting inside a school building which was quite dark inside. I was using 18 to 55mm basic lens, and I had to crank up the ISO to 800, which created this ugly digital grains in the background. But after I switched the lens to this one, I could put the ISO down to 400 safely, thus removing the ugly grains. Another reason I like this 50mm lens is because it's 50mm. 50mm refers to the focal length of this lens, and focal length is basically how much a lens is zoomed in. The interesting fact I found is that the lower the focal length number is, the more evident this bending effect is. Personally, I do not like this bending effect. What I found about this 50mm lens is that it's quite similar to what our human eyes see. What is supposed to be straight appears straight on screen as well if it's shot with this 50mm lens. And also because this lens is quite zoomed in already, you can shoot some beautiful close-up photos and videos. But because this lens is so zoomed in, it does have few problems. If the subject is big, like a person, I have to be quite further back, which is not ideal if we are in enclosed space. It also creates problems for the audio if I'm using my shotgun microphone. If the subject is far away, the microphone will have hard time trying to catch its voices, noise, sound, whatever. Also secondly, because this is already quite zoomed in, is not the ideal lens for shooting handheld videos. One small shape looks a lot bigger on screen when shot with this 50mm lens. Another con of this lens is that its autofocus motor is super loud. So if I'm shooting a video, I have to put the lens in autofocus to focus on my subject, and then change the focus back to manual focus so the motor wouldn't whir while shooting the video. This Canon 50mm lens, aka the Nifty 50, do have some drawbacks, such as having only one focal length and having a loud motor. But when used correctly, it can shoot some very beautiful pictures and videos. I would recommend buying one if you do not have this already and you see one at a fair price. However, I should mention that I think this lens was designed mainly for photography, not videography. That's it for the review video. If you want to check out my other videos, they are right here, right now. Press that subscribe and like button. And I am Woogun, and I'll see you next time. I missed that.